So I took one of the most iconic advertising symbols in America and I transformed it into a meaningful message and story. I'm Joel Santana and welcome back to Image Maker Society. So I've been thinking a lot lately about how we as artists can take a familiar image, or we often take familiar images and we transform them into something new. So we've all seen the Morton Salt girl walking with the umbrella and she's walking in the rain and there's like a trail of salt because she's holding like a salt can and there's a trail of salt pouring behind her. And I think the tagline was like, when it rains, it pours. It's a classic American imagery in advertising that's considered to be one of the top most recognizable logos in America and has in fact been a symbol of American advertising for over 165 years. So it's a very old logo, but very popular because it's always throughout the years they've made some variations to it, but it's always kind of maintained a fairly familiar style and design throughout the years. And I find it crazy how spontaneous ideas can come to us from time to time. I was reading the scripture Matthew 5, and in that scripture it says, Jesus tells his followers, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." And just through reading that scripture and thinking about this creative illustration that I was working on, it made me think, what if this girl on the packaging, what if I created her to represent a story that had deeper meaning? And what if I could recreate a visual that told a different story, that gave a different kind of message? See, as Christians, we're called to be the salt and light of the world. And salt doesn't just add flavor to things, it also is used to conserve or preserve things. But also, we're called to be the light. And light is something that when you think about it, illuminates darkness. And in this case, it draws people towards truth. And so, again, as I was thinking about the scripture and looking at this little label on this can that's been around for over 100 years, this is just the way my brain works. I'm kind of like, I'm seeing a connection that I feel like as artists, we often make connection between things that most people just kind of overlook and think, what are you doing? People just don't see things the way that people like us see things. And so I thought, what if I reimagined this commercial icon, this incredibly famous American visual, to mean something that represents that calling to be the salt and light of the world? I just saw a connection that I just couldn't shake it off. I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And so I finally started sketching and coming up with some ideas on how I can kind of recreate this visual. And so I just started to think about different types of symbolic visuals that could help me get that point across. So as I started sketching, I knew that keeping the umbrella and the salt container was a must because there needs to be an immediate familiar element in the drawing if you want to make that connection. In other words, I want to create a new visual, but I want people to look at it and say, oh, this reminds me of this thing over here. And in order for there to be that kind of nostalgia, that sort of connection, you need to know which elements, which visuals you want to keep. But again, the idea is not just to take it all, leave it all the same. The idea is to transform it and make it something new. So it's really about knowing what to keep and what to change. Especially since this is an image that I'm not the first one doing it. This is such a famous image that there's so many paintings, so many t-shirts and posters that have been recreated from this visual. But I just knew that the idea and the spin on it that I wanted to put on this is something worth pursuing. So another thing I did was I kept her walking forward because that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to not hide, but go out into the world and be a light. So this idea of moving forward, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I did have some examples of her just kind of standing or sitting somewhere, but I ultimately decided that she really needed to be walking forward because even that pose, that action was really important. The umbrella definitely had to stay because sometimes being the salt and light and going out into the world means that you're going to be walking through some storms, means that it's not going to always be an easy task. But then I added also these like floating fish around the scene, which was very different from the original Morton Salt girl. I added them because I did want to add a little bit of whimsy to the illustration. That's just something that I add into a lot of my artwork. A lot of my artwork has some sort of like a whimsical kind of feel to it, and I wanted to bring some of that into it. But I also know that fish also have strong symbolism in Christianity, so there was a nice tie-in with that. And then another key thing in the original visual is like the raindrops on the umbrella. And I changed those to be arrows, which is, I know it's a little bit violent or a little bit more intense, but I wanted to add those just for a little bit more visual interest. I felt like it would look cooler, but also I think it would also still kind of communicate the walking through a storm. But again, just kind of communicating that idea that it is a difficult thing, can be a difficult thing to do, especially when you're walking through a world where people call light darkness and darkness light and things like that. So I feel like this was a nice visual to bring in and help kind of communicate a little bit of that resistance. That's one of the things that I wanted to communicate through this illustration, is that we do have a choice. We have a choice to go onward no matter what, or to allow people to put out our flame if they disagree with us. I found, especially as a creative Christian, that sometimes it's the world saying, oh, you sound too Christian or you're too preachy. But then other times it's the church, saying you seem too worldly or not preachy enough. And those are just things that you're going to have to work through, because really listening to too many different voices like that is one of the greatest hindrances to your creativity. But here's a cool little thing that I wanted to add to the illustration. At the very top of the umbrella, I added a light bulb because even though the arrows are raining down, even though the negative voices might get kind of loud, and even though we're walking through a storm at times, we're still called to be that light, to be the salt and light. And so I wanted to try to create a visual that, again, just continues to reinforce that idea of being the light. So creatively, I imagined the umbrella not just as protection for this character, but also the thing that's literally, carrying and holding that light, almost like a torch in a way, but in a steampunk industrial kind of style. Now, the fish, as I mentioned before, are huge Christian symbolism. So that was my reason for incorporating them into the scene. But I also thought that it kind of added a nice touch to the composition and the weight of the illustration from left to right. Now, in the scriptures, Jesus calls his disciples to be fishers of men. So that kind of ties in visually that point. But also, I had one of the fish to be half flesh, half bones, and that was taken from a scripture in Ezekiel that talks about bones coming to life. And it says something, it was Ezekiel's vision, can these bones come alive? And God breathes life into them and they become a mighty army. So there's just some really cool, visually interesting details in that. And I thought that, again, as we are light, salt and light, and going out into the world, I think that some of our, not just the words that we share, but the testimonies that we share, our actions, all of these things could truly be a transforming experience for people. People tend to change their perspective on certain things or look at things through a different lens. And so I just feel like sometimes that's something that we can do through our art. We can give somebody a fresh new perspective. We can take something that was spiritually dead and bring new life into it. I think that that's happened before with whether it's a painting, a movie, a song. I think we've done that in so many different ways. Is there anything that I could say within this painting that could point somebody to truth? Hey friends, I do hope that you're enjoying this video so far. Just wanted to let you know that the print that I'm working on is actually for sale on my website. So if you're interested, check it out. It's in the link below. I do have a 10% off discount only for those tuning into this video. No pressure. I know that the holidays are around the corner, so in case you want it or were interested in maybe getting this either for yourself or for a loved one or something that has a nice kind of Christian message weaved into this illustration, I just wanted to let you know and give you guys an offer. Like I said, it's a 10% discount, so feel free to check it out. Everything is in the description below. But now back to the video. One of the cool things that I love about this concept is that the Morton Salt, like this salt, is something that most people have in their homes. If you eat salt, but if you do, you probably have it in your house. Most people have this brand. And so most people see this every day. And so part of it was thinking, can I put a cool illustration out there that'll make people think about this, differently, that'll make people think of a different message, a different story every time they look at this. And for creatives, maybe every time you see this, it'll make you think, is there a way that I can be salt? Is there a way that I can be light? Is there a way that I can do that through my own stories, through my own paintings, my own songs, or photographs? As I kept working on this painting, I kept thinking, man, it's so cool how the salt still pours from her container, but now it represents preservation. It represents making the world better. The fish swimming around her, flying around in a sense, I think that in itself kind of represents this supernatural, miraculous kind of feel. When you're able to take something that everyone has seen, when you're able to take something ordinary and give it new meaning, put a new twist on it, I think many times that's when something really incredible happens. It's like if you remember through the scriptures, Jesus always taught through parables, and he always used very basic things like a seed, a tree, water. But he took all of these simple things to teach profound truths. He took all of these elements, these things that people see on their day-to-day life, to communicate a stronger message. And I think that as artists, that's something that you can do as well. Sometimes we're overthinking the idea. We're overthinking and overcomplicating the artwork, when really you can just draw inspiration from some of the simplest things. There's an artist that I discovered actually by watching a short film called, I think it was called The Lost Thing, and the artist's name is Santana, I think I'm pronouncing that right. His approach to combining the familiar with the fantastical, it feels so thoughtful. It feels like something that really resonates rather than just being weird for the sake of being weird. And what I love about his work is how he uses a lot of those mashups to convey deeper feelings, like a strange hybrid creature and crazy architecture. This isn't just cool visuals. They're actually used to communicate the feeling of being displaced, or of these characters that are trying to navigate a world where things feel out of place, and maybe they're trying to figure out how they fit into this world. It's more than just a creative choice. It's more than just taking random elements and putting them together just because it looks weird and interesting. These things are being put together by the artist strategically, thoughtfully, in order to tell a story, in order to communicate a message to the audience. So for me, it was taking this familiar image, this something very basic like table salt, and really transforming it into something new and giving it a new and powerful story, a message that I want to communicate to people, and trying to find a way to do that in a way that's aesthetically interesting. And I believe that that's the power of artistic transformation. Now, with that said, I'm not trying to tell you to go rip off some other artist's work. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm talking about transformation, which means that you're bringing something uniquely you to the table. You're bringing your message, your story, your visual voice. Whereas ripping off is just visual theft and really nothing new to say, and tracing over the lines and hoping that nobody will notice. It's like the difference between, it's like that famous quote, I think it was Picasso that said, great artists steal, bad artists imitate. I don't know. Look it up. Let me know in the comments below. I can't remember how it goes, but I think that you might be familiar with it. You know, as artists, I think we have this incredible opportunity to tell stories visually in ways that other people can't, because we see stories and things in ways that most people don't. And I don't think that you have to try to reinvent the wheel all the time. I think that many times you can take an existing idea and transform it into something new. And I would argue that most, if not all, ideas are a transformation of something that you've seen before. And most ideas that you like, it's because you think, oh wow, this reminds me of this, or wow, that looks so cool, it sort of reminds me of that. That's when you know that it's been created thoughtfully, that the artist has put thought into an idea, drew inspiration from something, and turned it into his own. And so no matter what your skill level, no matter what your genre or what your medium, whether you're a digital artist, a traditional artist, music, photography, whatever it is, we all have something that we want to share, a story that we can tell. And a lot of times you think to yourself, well, maybe nobody really cares about my art, or nobody really cares about what I have to say. But you never know how many people your story, your drawing, your painting, your message that you want to put onto the world, how many people it will touch. Even if it's just one. I've gotten things where I've put stuff out there and I'll get even just one message from somebody saying, wow, I'm going through this right now. And when I saw your drawing or when I saw your video, whatever it is, it really encouraged me, or it really gave me a different perspective, or it really touched me because of what I'm experiencing in my life right now. So even if it's just for the one person, I would say we're called to be the salt and light, even if it just impacts in the smallest way somebody, whoever's on the other end. I want to challenge you to look around your environment, look around your world. What's something ordinary? It could be something commercial, it could be something really basic and ordinary, but ask yourself, can I tie this in with something else and create a deeper meaning? Can I make this into a completely different sort of story or message? Can you take something that's ordinary, whatever that is, this thing, whatever that thing is, can you add some of your creativity into that and turn it into something special? Whether it's a painting, a song, a sculpture, photography, whatever it is, take something ordinary and make it extraordinary. And please, if you do it, if you accept this challenge and you follow through with it, then tag me in it. If you send it to me, if you tag me on Instagram, it's I am Joel Santana. You can tag me there. You can email it to me. You could see my links below. You could find links to my website and everything. But I really am interested in seeing what you come up with. I think that some of the best ideas are formed this way, through combination of really simple things and more complex creativity and ways of thinking. And hey, if this video got you thinking a little bit different about arts and faith and creativity, hit that subscribe button. And until the next one, keep creating, keep being the salt and light of the world, and I will see you on the next video. Keep the fire alive, my friends.